program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Level, additional parking up above, and then above that there will be workforce housing apartments. So a true mixed-use development on the site of the existing transit transfer facility. Going on ahead to page 65, we've got a couple of projects within our land, building, and equipment fund that I wanted to highlight. First of all, on page 65 is an investment in renewable energy. As I mentioned before, we're in the process of implementing directives of the City Council related to renewable sources of energy, and we've included a total of $1 million spread evenly over all 5 years of the CIP, $200,000 per year, to investigate and implement alternative sources of energy. It could be solar, could be geothermal, could be other sources of renewable energy, but we think this is a pretty significant investment on the part of the city towards meeting those long-term goals of being energy independent. On page 66, we've got another project entitled City Hall Campus Improvements. $3.6 million is included for 2019. This is in combination with funds that have been budgeted in previous CIPs. We're in the process of receiving bids for a major modification to City Hall downtown. We have replaced the roof in that facility. We have cleaned up the exterior, including tuck pointing and cleaning of the exterior of the facility, and now we're going to turn our attention inwards, replace the windows, and restore many of the original architectural features within the interior of the building, and generally make that space more usable for the long-term needs of city employees and visitors to the City Hall. On page 68, third project I want to just highlight, and that is the Community Development Inspection Computer System. For many years now, we've been sharing a land management and community development inspection computer system with Eau Claire County. Eau Claire County is evaluating that system for replacement, and we are also looking at a replacement for our inspection system. This is the computer application that we keep track of nuisance complaints and building inspections, the hope is that the new system will allow more online use by customers, so that they'll be able to apply for and obtain building permits, electrical permits, and such online without having to come to our office to transact a business. So really trying to make it more convenient for the builders and the residents of Eau Claire to transact business with us without physically having to come down to our offices. So we've got $250,000 included in 2019 for that particular project. Also on page 68 is a project entitled Sustainable Purchasing and Development. One of the things that the City Council resolution on the Paris Accord and energy independence is to evaluate options for renewable energy sources and really do sort of a cost-benefit analysis on those alternatives, not just to pursue renewable sources because it's a good thing to do, but because it also makes economic sense to do so. So one of the things that this project is proposing is to work with a consultant to develop a set of electronic tools that can aid the city in the evaluation of projects towards meeting those energy independence goals, as well as the reduction in carbon emission goals that the City Council established. So this is an $11,000 project that is planned for 2011. On page 69, on the next page, this is related to the City Hall campus remodeling, but this is furnishings for that particular building. I'm sure many of you have been around City Hall, and if you've been in certain offices, there are desks and other things that have probably been there since the 1950s, maybe the 1960s. So it's kind of been a piecemeal approach when some of those have been replaced, but we are budgeting $600,000 in 2019 to modernize the office furnishings. We're going to have a beautiful new interior, and it would be a shame to move some of those older desks and chairs into that new facility. On the next page, page 70, are some upgrades to the City Council chambers. This is really a technology-related update that would replace and reconfigure the technology equipment, including sound, video, software, presentation tools, conferencing tools, and camera systems. As I believe you're all aware, that system has provided some challenges from time to time as far as the microphones working and the video system working, and it's time that that system gets updated. If you want to flip to page 78 within the CIP, this is within our transportation fund, a series of projects here I wanted to highlight. One of those is the bicycle wayfinding signage program, similar to the wayfinding program we talked about downtown. But this is more on a citywide basis to implement wayfinding and bicycle route designations within the communities. This is something that has been called for within the comprehensive plan, and something that we're including $25,000 in each year of the CIP, total of $125,000 to continue implementation. On page 79 is our citywide trail program. We've included a little bit over $3.5 million for new pedestrian and bike trails within our community. You can see the list of projects highlighted there, including Rod and Gun Park, the Hope Gospel Trail, Forest Street Trail, repairs to various trail bridges, the Chippewa River Trail, and Half Moon Lake Trail. So a number of projects within our community extending the bicycle and pedestrian network to other locations. Also on page 80, this project has been in for several years. Some of you have been seeing it, but this is the Galloway Street Railroad Overpass. This project is planned for design in 2020 and construction in 2021. This Galloway Street, with the development of downtown, Galloway Street has become one of the major entry points into and out of the downtown area, and an overpass structure along Galloway Street for the railroad tracks would provide better access. There can be times where the train backups at that location can become pretty significant. Also, this is really combined with another project that I'll touch on in a second, but would provide for quiet zones within the downtown area. So if you eliminate those at-grade crossings or provide appropriate barriers so that vehicles cannot cross onto the tracks, the trains no longer need to blow their whistle in advance of crossing those intersections. On page 81, Jeffers Road, STBG Urban. This is the reconstruction of Jeffers Road, north of the North Crossing out to County Line Road. This would include a construction of that road to urban standards and include bicycle lanes along the road. This is planned for design in 2020 with construction in 2021, total of $500,000 for that project. And I touched on this just a second ago. On page 81 is the Putnam Street Railroad Quiet Zone. This would upgrade the railroad safety devices at the Putnam Street crossing of the Union Pacific, and would again eliminate the need for engines to sound their horns in advance of that, crossing, and support the quiet zone within the center of the city. Jumping ahead to page 86, this is our Parks and Recreation Fund. Included within this project is Southwest Dog Park and Boat Launch. This is down adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant on the edge of the community along the Chippewa River. This is envisioned as not only a boat launch, but also a dog park where dogs will have I guess more free range than they might have at the current locations. It's envisioned as not including a fence, but natural vegetation along the boundaries, and dogs would also have access to the river at this particular location. This is planned for 2019 with a cost of $133,000. Also on page 86 is proposed Carson Park Master Plan. It's been quite some time since a master plan has been completed for Carson Park, and it's time to revisit the master plan and to consider the long-term usage of this particular park. And this is planned for 2019. On page 87, within the Parks and Rec Fund again is the Northwest Community Park. This is out along Jeffers Road, north of the North Crossing. The land in this area was acquired in 1999 and 2001, and the park has remained undeveloped until this time. Proposed is $130,000 in 2020 and $280,000 in 2022 to begin construction of that particular park. And this is somewhat typical of park development within the city of Eau Claire. Oftentimes, land is acquired in one particular year, and then it may be several years before the park is ultimately developed. Think of Jeffers Park as well out in this particular area, where we had that land for quite a while before the baseball associations began construction of their facilities, and we installed the playground equipment and other improvements at that location. So these things do tend to get scheduled sometime out in advance of when the land is actually acquired. Jumping ahead to page 96, this is Tax Incremental District. We're calling it right now Tax Incremental District number 14, but probably it'll end up being Tax Incremental District number 13. I was just trying to avoid 13. Didn't want it to be an unlucky district and be the first one that isn't successful in the community, but there's this little thing in the statute that says they have to be consecutively numbered. So, but be that as it may, we're proposing $3.8 million in 2021 for the development of the Riverfront Park within the Cannery redevelopment area. This is the area north of Madison Avenue along the Chippewa River Trail, north of Family Video. But last year we did install a bike trail connecting Madison Street up to the High Bridge, and there's a full development of park facilities along the river in this particular location to complement the redevelopment of the Cannery area, with hopefully with other housing and commercial opportunities within that area. And then flipping ahead to page 98, which is the library. Included within this CIP is a total of $19 million for renovation and expansion of the existing library. The library has had a facility needs analysis completed in terms of what are the immediate and near-term needs for maintenance of the facility, as well as long-term space needs for the facility. This is envisioned as the $2 million in 2019 is to begin the design process for the new facility, as well as complete some capital repairs that are needed and would not be wasted, if you will, if we proceed with the full project. The $17 million included in 2020 is envisioned as a public-private partnership with $8.5 million being funded by the City of Eau Claire and the other $8.5 million being funded through private fundraising and donations. And then last but not least, on page 102 of the CIP is the Cannery Redevelopment District. This proposal is to purchase 2000 Oxford Avenue. This would be the final acquisition within the Cannery redevelopment area. This year we're planning on, we have purchased a vacant parcel of land that was owned by Jack Kaiser, and we're currently discussing the purchase of a small apartment building kind of behind Quick Trip there. And then this would be to purchase 2000 Oxford Avenue, which is another building owned by Jack Kaiser that's got a few commercial tenants in it. But this would complete the property acquisitions within the Cannery redevelopment area. So with that, I would be happy to answer questions about projects included within the CIP. And again, I would ask that Plan Commission find this document consistent with the comprehensive plan.
All right, that's great. Any questions? Mr. Peterson.
I have 4 questions.
Shoot.
The first one on page 33, what is the license plate recognition project?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Downtown parking enforcement continues to be a priority of the City Council as well as businesses within the downtown area. License plate recognition software eliminates the need for the community service officers to put chalk markings on tires and then come back an hour later and see if that little chalk marking has moved or not moved. So it's much more automated. You can literally drive around. It recognizes the license plates, and then when you come back around, it knows whether or not that license plate is in the same location excuse me, as it was before, and if not, it automates the ticket writing process. So that's what that particular project is.
I have 3 more. On page 77, with replacing the city boulevard trees that have died or were cut down, is that only the ash trees that were cut down, or is that other trees that the city has planted that have met their own demise?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a tree that has met its own demise for one reason or another, but to a large extent, it is ash trees that we are preemptively removing because we've known for years that ash borer was going to be here at some point in time.
And on page 82 with the Dewey Street Bridge project, it sounds like we would not be able to put a bike ped trail underneath the bridge since we're just doing redecking and rehabilitation of the bridge as opposed to reconstructing it.
Yeah, we are still looking at putting an underpass on the would it be the north side of the Dewey Street Bridge, not part of this project. But we are looking at that as a separate project. We do have sufficient space there, and there wouldn't be anything we would be doing with the redeck that would prevent us from installing that underpass at some point in the future.
Because I know that the trail crossing just south of Galloway Street is not the safest.
Right, and we've had various conversations with developers of the former Hipsch site, and most of those conversations have included using tax increment financing dollars to pay for that underpass of Dewey Street. Yeah.
And then on page 86, 450 FFF6, the Carson Park Master Plan. Why does that describe all the improvements to Mount Simon Park?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have no idea.
Okay.
But the master plan is as I described. That may have been changed since then because the sheet I was reading off of didn't have that particular language in there. But it is to do a new master plan for Carson Park. to meet the long-term needs of that facility.
Is there another item that then is improvements to Mount Simon Park?
No, sir.
Okay, so I would correct that
Yes.
before it comes before
Yes.
the council.
It's been done already. Thank you.
All right.
All right, Mr. Grayling, I think you had?
Noticed the same thing.
Ah, got it. Any additional questions? I'm not seeing any. So we're looking for a motion, right? Okay, so I guess at this point, if nobody has any additional questions, we'd be looking for a motion for a recommendation. Thank you so well. Or don't push button, yeah, just,
I move to approve the 2018 to 2023 capital improvement plan as presented by staff.
excellent. We have a second? Renewable. Great. I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, I'm not seeing any. Let's call the question. All those in favor of recommendation, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, wonderful. Thanks, Jay. Good job. All right, so on to item number 3. Public hearing for recommendation, annexation from the town of Union. Southwest corner of Highway 12 and Kane Road. Mr. Allen?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Before you this evening is a request from Mr. Mogensen. Apologize for misspelling of his name on there. But it's a petition to annex approximately 0.4, so 0.4 of an acre of land at the southwest corner of Kane Road and 312/US Highway 12, essentially across from the Menards facility. It is not being proposed to have any development at this moment, it's simply moving forward with annexation. Part of the request, again, is to bring it into balance of the property. There are about 8.5 acres here, owned by Mr. Mogensen and his company, that's zoned commercial. And so this, although would come in with kind of the standard zoning of the TR1A, so there would be future rezoning and such before you, once the project comes forward, as that's being considered. Right now, there's no proposal that staff is aware of for the balance of the property. But again, to bring this notch that's in the town of Union into the city of Eau Claire, again, for future consideration of a future proposal at that location. With that, again, the request is consistent with comprehensive plan. It's within the sewer service area of the city, and sanitary sewer and water are available along Kane Road. And I'll stand for any questions.
All right, great. I got one real quick one. It seems to me that it should be commercial or something high traffic. Is TR1A the default temporary zoning, or should it be a temporary commercial zone?
That is generally the default, is to just the standard TR1A. Again, since it's temporary zoning, nothing can be developed on there until it does come forward with a rezoning. But yes, as noted, the balance is C3, or is it C2? C2, thank you, Mr. Petrie. C2 zoning. There is R2 zoning behind that. So there's some residential already in the area, but at this corner, again, zoning is already in place for this property, about 8.5 acres. Yes, even though it'd be TR1A, it would likely be something more in line with what's already existing.
Thanks. Any additional questions? Mr. Peterson?
As a follow-up to that, is there any way we could annex it as C2?
That's a very good question, but
Since
no.
it's surrounded by that?
Not at this moment, not without a separate rezoning request.
Okay.
Again, just with the annexations, again, as a standalone, it would be that temporary zoning category.
Just seemed to save a step.
Sure. But again, as the applicant would move forward with a development proposal, they will be coming forward with rezoning at that time, correct?
Great. Any additional questions? I'm not seeing any.
All right. Thank you.
Is the applicant here tonight? No? Okay. Well, we do have a public hearing on this one, so if there's anybody that'd like to come forward to discuss this item, now would be your opportunity. Anybody like to come forward? All right, I'm not seeing anybody, so we would be looking for a motion. Anybody? Terry?
I'll make the motion to approve the annexation.
Great. Second?
Second.
That's great. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any. Let's call the question. All those in favor of the recommendation for annexation? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Not seeing any. Okay, next one. We've got number 4 is a final action, conditional use permit for recreational vehicles, sales and service, and a site plan for RV sales lot. And before we begin, Commonwealth involved on this one, so I will not be involved in the voting or discussion on this. With that, Mr. Allen?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, members of the commission. Again, before you this evening is there are 2 applications for one project here related to the Gander Outdoors property. The applicant is Gander RV Sales, represented by Ayers Associates. Again, the request is for approval of both a conditional use permit as well as approval of a site plan. The applicant proposes to display, sell, and service recreational vehicles complementary to the existing Gander Outdoors retail product assortment on the Gander Outdoors site, inside the Gander Outdoors building, and on the new adjacent 2.94 acre lot just to the west. Construction per the applicant is proposed to commence in early October and be completed 2 months later. The applicant has provided a little bit more detailed narrative that's in your agenda packet. With that, I'll kind of walk through the different parts for your consideration here this evening. The conditional use, again, there are actually 2 requested conditional uses for this project. They're related uses, both the off-street parking facility, which would be on the currently undeveloped 2.94 acre site, as well as RV sales or service on the existing Gander Outdoors property. There's some additional information in terms of how that is proposed to be modified, both the existing site and then how they're proposing to develop the 2.94 acre site. Parking, give some detail on that in the staff report. Applicant is proposing to exceed the maximum allowed for the overall project. But again, those additional spaces are primarily related to the RV lot. And I'll get into a little bit more here later. The applicant is requesting to take advantage of the 50% reduction allowed by code to reduce bicycle parking spaces from 21 that would be required down to 11. Staff is agreeable to that as well, considering the location and clientele there. For the design, I can provide some of that here on the overhead, but it is generally in keeping with what's already existing. The applicant is looking to enclose more substantially the existing kind of outdoor fenced area adjacent to the building. In the staff report, refers to it as the east or northeast. On here, it's essentially on the left-hand side. Let's zoom in here. So with that, again, this is what's being enclosed, and this is the view, essentially from the interstate on-ramp, are the bays that are being proposed for the service. So with that, though, staff is recommending that applicant consider additional masonry and or EFS enhancements on this, in this area in particular, to better match the materials that are already existing. Again, they are retaining this portico or entryway feature, which is certainly a preferred design element. for certain. You can see it here. A little bit better. But again, with the corrugated metal top to bottom, it would be preferred to have some of these other stone or masonry or even some EIFS components integrated, at least on this front facade. There's some additional information regarding traffic, utilities, grading and drainage provided by the engineering department. I do want to mention signage as well. Again, since the new lot does not have a primary structure, signage is not allowed on that, so just for future reference. Also include here the landscape plan. It's a little unique in that, again, it is providing for that perimeter landscaping. Some of it's more clustered in places in order to take advantage of some of the view sheds to the property. But also there are no parking lot islands proposed or striping of any of the parking spaces. Again, for the most part, because this is going to be proposed to be that RV storage and display sales area and not really a more traditional parking lot. So with that, there's a draft letter giving conditions of approval for your consideration. And I know the applicant's representative is here as well, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thanks. Any questions? Mr. Allen?
All right, thank you.
Is the applicant here?
Good evening. I'm Angie Goodwin with Ayers Associates representing Gander Outdoors. On behalf of Gander Outdoors, we certainly concur with the 4 conditional conditions that staff recommends in that letter, and I'm here to answer any other questions. I also have 2 gentlemen with Gander Outdoors with me, Todd and Jameson, who traveled here from 2 different states to be here, so maybe you can come up with a good question for them, but they can help me out if I can't answer your questions.
That's great. Any questions for Angie? Oh, here we go. Sharon. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Goodwin, for being here. I had a question about the logistics of visitors going to this new sales area for RVs. Are they essentially going to be? It sounds like everybody will park in the main lot and then walk over to the sales area, or take a golf cart, or I guess I'm not totally sure the logistics of what your plan is for that.
Correct. The sales will occur out of the existing building. Obviously, there's no building at the new site, and so the primary way of transport is through golf carts. So they will take their customers via golf carts. We did not want the golf carts on the public street, so there is an asphalt path following behind the sidewalk that connects the 2 sites. So golf carts will be that primary mode of transportation.
Because I have a follow-up question to that. So I'm assuming that last stall to the east, to the southeast in that new lot would never have a vehicle parked in it, and maybe even the ones close to that, so that there's enough space to get through, presumably.
Correct, yes. And actually, as Mr. Allen noted, there's not proposed to be any striping whatsoever in that lot. We showed striping just for the purposes of, since it needs to be approved as a parking lot, we needed to have a number, so we're just showing striping for concept. So none of that will be striped at all. And so correct, they just would not display any vehicles in front of that access point.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Any additional questions? I'm not seeing any.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It is a public hearing, so if you'd like to come forward to discuss this item, now is your opportunity. And this is a public hearing, so if there's anybody here, please come forward. I'm not seeing any, so I guess we'd be looking for a motion. Shagged it. Great.
I'll move approval with staff recommendations.
That's great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Terry. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? I'm not seeing any. All right, let's call the question. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? I don't see any, and I'm abstaining. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, congratulations. Good luck. All right, on to item number 5. Got public hearing for final action, conditional use permit for Tavern, and then a site plan parking waiver. And it looks like 200 Main Street. The location. Thanks, Ryan.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, members of the public. Before you is a conditional use for a tavern in central business zoning located at 200 Main Street. Let's go that way. It's located on the corner of Main Street and Graham Avenue. The applicant is requesting to put in a tavern and an existing art gallery studio. In your packet is the applicant's statement, narrative, and the site floor plan for the tavern. The applicant notes that 200 Main Street will become an art and wine gallery and would be one of the first ones in the community. The tavern proposed for the property would serve drinks while looking at art gallery during business hours, before and after Pablo Center events, and after other downtown activities. The reason for it before you is a conditional use in central business zoning district. And the Plan Commission shall judge the compatibility of this request with other surrounding land uses. And those criteria are noted in your staff report. Also to note, the downtown is a mixture of land uses with commercial typically on the ground floor, and then residential or offices on the second and third floor, similar to this building. Also with this request is a change in land use from an art gallery studio to a tavern with an art gallery studio, which requires exemption in the parking requirements in the downtown. The parking requirements for an art gallery is one parking space for every 300 square feet. For a tavern, it's based on the seating capacity, which is required 1 stall per 3 seats. On the proposed floor plan, you would note that there would be proposed 8 tables shown throughout the art gallery. A little bar area here as you enter in from here. Throughout this whole area would be art to look at. And then as you head back, there's an office and then the restroom facilities. And then there's some storage back here. Based on the seating, majority of this would be for 8 tables and probably 3 chairs each. The capacity would be based on this, would be by the building official to determine the capacity of the site. Also, commercial uses need to be within 800 feet of the site for the parking requirement. There is a public ramp available after 5 o'clock on Graham Avenue, which is located here. This tavern is unique in description and similar to the conditional use permit the Plan Commission reviewed in 2015 for a wine tasting room and painting venue at 204 South Barstow Street. That's next to the Pizza Plus. Not only would this require a conditional use permit and a parking waiver, the city council would have to approve the liquor license prior to opening as a tavern. With that, our recommendation is the Plan Commission needs to find compatibility with the standards of code and approve not only that request, but also approve the exception in the parking requirement for a tavern. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, great. Sounds like fun. Any questions? Mr. Granlund?
How many parking stalls do they currently require compared to what they expect?
That is a good question. Based on the square footage that I calculated, right now they're probably required about 4 spots. With the tavern operation, they'd be required about, I think, 12 spots, give or take.
Except that with a single, is that a single toilet room?
That I do not know.
If that's a single toilet room, they're actually limited to 14 occupants. If they have 14 occupants, 1 per 3 is 5 cars, so they'd be very close to their requirement, unless it is multiple separate gendered toilet rooms.
That I do not know. The applicant is here to potentially answer that question.
Great. Any additional questions? Jeremy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Petrie, I was wondering, so I guess I think about all the different modes of transportation in context here, not just the parking that's available nearby for automobiles. So my understanding, this is like a block away from the bus transit center, so I think that's something that's important. And then I was wondering about Graham Avenue with the reconstruction of that street, and it sounded like there was going to be bike parking installed along the entire length of the reconstructed Graham Avenue. Can you confirm that that would be the case?
I believe the city engineer may know that answer. John, is there going to be bicycle racks on the reconstruction of Graham Avenue?
I don't know the answer to that. I suspect that there will be, but I don't know.
I guess that helps like complete the picture as to all the different modes of transportation available. So.
Sounds great. Any additional questions for Ryan? Okay, I don't see any. Thanks, Ryan. Is the applicant here? Come on up, thanks. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Joellen Burke. My address at home is 5600 Tower Drive in town of Seymour, and then 200 Main downtown, where the gallery is.
Anything you'd like to add?
A couple things. This has been, the gallery has been a passion that we've had going for 2 years now. Having rented the place, we are owners of the gallery itself, but we are renting from Mr. Mogensen, who has been supportive of what we're doing, and he has agreed to this conditional use permit. We do think that although we have been voted the best gallery in Eau Claire, which was a great accolade for this year, it doesn't help us necessarily sustain the sales of a gallery. So we feel that with the growing creative economy downtown, our location close to the Pablo Center, and other factors, that we see this as a rich environment to bring in a social aspect. We cringe at the term tavern because this will be anything but a tavern. We'd like to maintain it as a gallery and use this opportunity to bring people in socially and otherwise before and after events, an opportunity to engage in some readings, some demonstrations, a sharing of what art can be, 2D art and visual arts for the public. And so we find the use of sharing the social environment with wine mostly would be our goal. The bathroom issue that you brought up, I think, is an important one. I think once we would get the liquor license, our efforts would be toward expanding that bathroom to accommodate that criteria.
That's great. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Yes, Mr. Will.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. The liquor license, is Mr. Mogensen moving that from a different location, or did he see acquiring a new license from the state?
Yes, we're requiring a new one. We would be applying for the one that is available. The one that came available as a result of tailgates closing is now available up until next Monday. The applications are due. So our application was the first one placed, and so we hope to secure that first, obviously.
Great. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Great. Let's see. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, so if there's anybody that would like to come forward to discuss this item, please do. Anybody would like to come forward, now is your opportunity. Great, I'm not seeing anybody. So we'll be looking for a motion. James. No problem.
Make a motion to approve this.
And a second? Mr. Greger. Thank you. Okay, I'll get a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Mr. Peterson. All right, please.
I'd like to keep the motion at the occupancy of the 8 tables. So we're at the worst case scenario parking wise, as opposed to them being restricted to only 14 patrons with the bathrooms not being up to par for additional patrons. And That way they won't have to come back again.
Seems reasonable. Is that everybody's assumption on that? On the motion?
Yeah, that's the way it's presented.
Mr. Granley, all right?
I would agree that if their intent is at some point to remodel and expand their capacity, then definitely we'd want to approve this only one time. There wasn't an indication that that was a remodeling consideration previously.
And I assume the inspections department would control that anyway, right? Yeah, so, okay. So motion is as presented and no qualifiers. Okay, great. Just got a motion, second. Anybody else with comments, discussion? Great, I'm not seeing any. Let's call the question. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. Good luck. All right, great. Now, on to item number 6. Another recommendation item, trail easement. This is the City of Eau Claire.
All right, thank you. Before you tonight for recommendation is a permanent trail easement. The easement would be located along the northwest corner of the property located at 1618 Harding Avenue. Here's what we're looking at here. The easement is needed for the construction and use of a bicycle trail connection from Valmont Avenue to Harding. Valmont is over here, connecting over here to Harding Avenue. The purpose would be as an alternate bicycle route from Brackett Avenue. The trail would be 8 feet. 8 feet is so that we could keep the trail within the one parcel, make it seem more like a trail and less like a drive path for motor vehicles, and to allow for the maintenance area on the north side of the trail. The project was a part of the 2018 Citywide milling and asphalt contract. And with that, I would take any questions.
Thanks. Any questions? I don't see any. Thanks.
Thank you.
And the city's the applicant. And this is public hearing, I guess, right? So if there's anybody here who'd like to come forward to discuss this item?
It's just the recommendations.
Oh, it's the recommendation, so, all right. We'll be looking for a motion on the recommendation. All right, thanks. All right, Mr. Peterson. Or, I'm sorry, Mr. Weld.
I move to approve.
And second, Mr. Brown.
Second.
Great. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yeah, Mr. Graham. I'm sorry, Chairman.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been actually really looking forward to this coming in front of the city, and I just wanted to show my appreciation to staff for working with the I guess the neighboring property owners as well as the property owner that's agreeing to the easement, because it is going to be really important connection and part of the negotiation of with the bicycle and pedestrian community with Brackett Avenue being redone was to find a way to allow people to divert onto a more quiet street, in this case Valmont. So this is going to really allow that to happen. So I think this is a very necessary and pretty well thought out way of making it work. And I think maybe the crossing at Margaret is going to be something we're going to want to work with if it ends up, because it's really not very far away from the intersection with Harding. So we'll see how it all works. But I think the engineering and the easement width looks appropriate to me, so I just wanted to show my appreciation for that.
Excellent, Mr. Rager. Any additional discussion? Wonderful. We look, let's see, motion second, we'd be looking to call a question then. All those in favor of recommendation, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks. All right, next item, for recommendation of final plat, Forest Glen, formerly Westover Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. members of Plan Commission, members of the public. Everyday Surveying and Engineering on behalf of Westover Holdings LLC is requesting approval of final plat, formerly Westover Woods, now it's Forest Glen Estates, located on the northwest corner of State Street and Westover Road. The final plat as shown, which is hard to see on there, is 13 lots, 11 off of Westover Road and 2 off of State Street. The final plat is consistent with the preliminary plat that was approved on April 16th by this commission. Utility easements are shown. Again, all lots do meet R1 zoning district standards. This is a public street. If you remember, this was proposed back in January as a private street with condos. That was denied by this commission and city council. This would be a public street with 11 lots, again, off of Westover Road and 2 off of State Street. The development agreement will be heard at the city council as a separate item. This final plat will go on the August 28th agenda. Staff does recommend approval of the request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Weld?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the council will see the general development plan on the 28th as well, or we'll see it also in the future, and the council will see it?
Not the general development plan, it would be the developer's agreement.
Or that's what I meant, I'm sorry, the developer's agreement.
Yes, this will be, the final plat will be one item. The next item on the agenda will be the development agreement from the city engineer. And that will discuss sidewalks, streetlights, drainage. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Additional questions? Yes, Mr. Peters?
If I remember correctly, with the preliminary plat, there's that little sliver of land on the south side of the cul-de-sac near the west side that is kind of hanging out there as a sliver. Was that going to become part of the cul-de-sac?
John, do you want to answer that one?
You see what I'm talking about, John?
Yes, I can answer it if I get the mic.
Oh, yeah, sorry. How's that?
Yeah, you are correct. On the preliminary plat, they had one outlot down underneath there. And what they ended up doing was they combined that outlot with an adjacent lot. So the cul-de-sac stays the same 50-foot radius for the right-of-way, but that land goes to an adjacent parcel. So it's not this small no man's land, so to speak.
All right, any additional questions? I'm not seeing anyone. Thanks, Frank. All right, is applicant here? Come forward.
I'm the engineer. Oops. I'm the engineer for the developer.
All right, name and address, please.
Dan Knowlton, 809 Jewel Court, Eau Claire, 54703.
Anything to add or comments?
No, nothing at all.
Okay, wonderful. Any questions for the applicant? Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so if there's anybody here that'd like to discuss, I'm not seeing anybody, so I think we're going on to a motion. Like to make a motion? Just missed out. There we go. Jerry or Terry?
I'll make a motion to approve the final plan.
I'll second.
Peterson, Mr. Well, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not seeing any, so let's go ahead and call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. Good luck. All right, on to item 8, which is for recommendation, final plat, Southside lots. Boardwalk Street.
Again, Everyday Surveying and Engineering on behalf of the property owner is proposing to plat 8.77 acres. Shown on the map here, which is south of Arthur Street, east of Broadway Street, north of Broadway Circle. This plat would create 18 multifamily residential lots with one outlot. Here's a good location map. showing the area. The trees have been removed. They're proposing, again, 18 lots. The 2 southern lots here would be for duplexes. The rest of the lots would be for 4 and 6 units. Those final site plans will be back at this commission at a later date. All these lots do meet the R3 zoning district standards and is consistent with the preliminary plat that was approved by this commission on June 18th. A portion of the right-of-way shown here will have to be dedicated by the City Council on August 28th, along with the approval of the final plat. And again, they will review the developer's agreement at that time as a separate item. Like I noted before, all final site plans of the apartment buildings will be back at this commission. Staff would approve administratively if the duplexes do meet the standards. Recommendation from staff would be to approve this request. Again, this will be heard at the City Council on August 28th, Tuesday. I'll be happy to answer any questions with this final plat.
All right, any questions from speaker? Okay, I guess I'm not seeing any. Thanks. The applicant here, just come up just in case.
Say my name again?
Any questions for the, or I'm sorry, anything you'd like to add?
No, we worked out a few things yesterday and today for John, engineering-wise, got them all worked out.
Okay, great. Sounds great. Any questions for the applicant? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thanks.
Okay.
We don't have anybody here in the public, so we'll call way forward. I guess we'd be looking for a motion. I'll move to approve. Great motion by Terry Weld. He's second by James. Motion and second. Any discussion on this one? Not seeing any, so let's go ahead and call the question. All those in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? All right, great. Thanks. Good luck. All right, so that's, we're on to discussion and direction. All right, public hearing? Sure.
You have to. While we try to get the image up on the screen, thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the commission. Just wanted to talk about just one item that was included here, kind of a follow-up to last meeting's discussion item about public noticing. What was included kind of very back of your agenda packet was just a matrix, kind of a spreadsheet on public hearings. So, thank you. There we go. I don't think we can read that still, if it's even better, but I can certainly zoom in to see if that helps. But just as a sample here, kind of zoom in a little bit. But the green highlighting on the screen, it looks a little bit more yellow. But the highlighting, regardless of color, are those items that are required to have a public hearing. And that's what you see here, kind of the different steps that go with each of these different application types. So some of these you're obviously very familiar with. You see quite frequently, rezonings, even some street vacations, things of that sort. Conditional use permits, we've had those tonight as well. Very accustomed to those being obviously public hearing, but we thought it would be kind of a helpful handout, kind of to help orient you on those that are public hearings and those that are not. So, plats, for example, are not public hearings in and of themselves, but again, if they have a rezoning with them, for example, or a conditional use permit for some reason, then we kind of wrap those all together in one public hearing. So that can lead to a little bit of confusion because we kind of combine some of these applications just for brevity's sake and also just for simplicity's sake. But through that can be a little bit cloudy in terms of what's really technically a public hearing and what is not. So hopefully this is fairly self-explanatory, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. But you can kind of see the multiple steps with each of these different applications. Yes being what's required at Plan Commission, Council, so on and so forth, and a no obviously being a step that could be skipped or otherwise avoided. And then again, in conclusion, kind of tying back to the discussion at the last meeting that is related to the public noticing. So this kind of ties back to the information that was provided to you last time. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any on the kind of public hearing, kind of in-meeting process.
This all kind of comes back, you got to crunch all this into the statutory notice timeframe, so
True.
These things have to happen before the expiration of whatever that.
Very good point, yes. So these kind of work hand in hand, the information provided to you last time, as well as this matrix. And again, this is something that staff created. Many thanks to our executive assistant, Angie, for putting this together. All I did was highlight the colors. So again, it's something that we've used as staff internally for quite a while as well.
Okay, Mr. Peterson, cut you off. Question?
Yeah, just to clarify it a little bit, the column under Plan Commission with the yeses, some over 30 and most, that's whether it comes before the Plan Commission or not. And
correct.
Then going back to the yellow or green shading, what is required to have a public hearing. The others that are not shaded is not a public hearing.
Correct. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. To break it down in that basic sense, absolutely. That's true. And so, yes, so that's why we didn't really drill down into the some or most components. We can certainly do that application type by application type, but kind of just the short version, that's, yes, green is, or highlighting here is public hearing, non-highlighting is not.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Brenthold.
Just general comments, but I think the matrix is extremely helpful. And I also like in the agenda now where we're identifying the public hearings and the particular agenda items that require them, and finally the map noting where all of the agenda items are taking place. I think are great improvements, and kudos to you and the staff.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Again, yeah, all thanks to the staff and helping with those. And I don't know if we should give the spoiler alert, but staff is looking at making some larger scale changes to the staff reports in the next month or two. So watch for those. We're trying to ease everybody into it a little bit, but it's one of those where it's probably easier just to go with a new staff report than piecemeal it in. So you'll see some of these other accessories coming online, as you mentioned, Mr. Brenthold, the map even today. And thanks to Pat Ivory for putting that together. Would have taken me half a day, took him probably half a minute. So anyway, that was something that seemed to be fairly helpful, especially with when we get a whole suite of application types and locations. Hopefully it's helpful to everybody. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments, questions? Not seeing any. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Peterson.
Can I ask one more? When you set up the agenda, oh, by the way, I love this map too. You know, when you want to go out and look at things, it tells you where you're going to go and where you're not going to go. But when you set up the order of the agenda, is it the order they come in that dictates where they are on the agenda? The reason I bring that up is anybody who is here for anything other than the capital improvements program don't want to sit through the capital improvements program. So could something like that, where it's voluminous and very technical, tend to be last, where the people are coming for the other small ones?
Yeah. Sure. Mr. Peterson, it's something we can certainly consider. It typically has been in the order that they are received. We also do try to put again, in terms of public hearing, non-public hearing, try to put the public hearing items first. Okay. That would be more, of interest to those in attendance from the public who would like to speak. So there's a balancing act there for sure. And for example, the CIP tonight, you saw the whole CIP in your packet, but Mr. Winsen's, kind of trimmed it down to some highlights. So hopefully it wasn't too lengthy for folks in the audience, but we'll certainly look into that to see balancing the respectfulness of if you get something in first, try to put you on first with, those that are longer perhaps and have less, I say interest, but maybe impact or less of an opportunity for input from the public. Could put those last, certainly.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing it in order, and that way you aren't showing preference from one body to another, because certainly sometimes the first agenda item for the evening is the one that's going to take an hour and 15 minutes, depending on the reaction from neighbors and the like, and the last 3 or 4 are pretty much check marks. So,
right.
I just, people are taking time to come down here and voice their opinions, and I'd rather not have them sit through a dry capital improvements program presentation. No, nothing against Jason. It's dry, okay?
Maybe we should put it first, and everybody gets to sit to the presentation.
Thank you, yes. And Mr. Chair, we're also trying to be respectful of everybody's time, your time, as well as staff time too, since you saw there are other departments that are presenting items like that as well. So trying to be respectful of their time, in addition to that of yours and the public and such. And I've been doing this for almost 25 years. I've yet to find the perfect balance of who goes first and who goes last, and the thing that you think would be least likely to have a lot of interest, you put first, and all of a sudden that has the most interest, and then can bog things down. I understand, absolutely.
Great. Anybody else? Not seeing anything.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. That takes us to code compliance items. Any code compliance items? All right, future agenda items? Yes.
Try several different microphones here tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one item that staff has. Again, kudos to staff for working diligently to schedule this up, considering our temporary housing that we have in a way. The next Plan Commission meeting will be the first Tuesday in September because of the Labor Day holiday. So that being the case, there was a conflict here in this room with the County Plan Commission at the same time. So again, kudos to staff for finding an alternative, and many thanks to the Eau Claire Area School District for allowing us to use their boardroom. So that was confirmed, final confirmation today. So many thanks to them. We'll be meeting at their boardroom offices in downtown Eau Claire. I believe it's technically off Dewey Street, but really right behind City Hall. At the same time, different location. So don't go to City Hall, don't go here, don't go to temporary City Hall, go to the school district board. So we'll provide some additional information for you when it gets that point in terms of probably best place to park, best place to access if you're not familiar with their board.
All right, thank you. Great. Any additional future agenda items? I'm not seeing any. So it takes us to the minutes. Any additions or corrections to the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, not seeing any. So I guess that brings us to the end. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689 or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.